on the line with us right now. We appreciate it. From the Painted Lines has done a fantastic job all season long covering the Sixers, Mr. Austin Krell. How are you today, Austin?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. I have to say, Chipotle-Qdoba debate's a good one. I had to stop going to Chipotle because they kept getting my quesadilla wrong on the app. After a while, I just gave up. So I don't get to have any of the Mexican food anymore because I can't figure out where to go.
Huh. And there was someone else who tweeted us something very similar. Now, I never had that issue. Maybe because when I walk in, they're like, damn, it's Broads. We got to make sure we get this thing on lock.
Well, so I will concede this.
That's
I'm a very picky eater, so I like to have my quesadillas done in a very specific way. But every time the rice ends up on the side. It's very, very, very upsetting.
We might have to look within then, Austin.
No, don't blame Austin.
What?
It's clearly your establishment. And we found out where Hunter gets his family money from. They own a chain of Chipotle. Why didn't you tell us?
Yeah. Oh, well, this changes everything now. This is just a now biased conversation. You can't do that.
Man, that's horrible. Now, Austin, last night we saw Joel Embiid show a lot of physical toughness. We saw Maxey in the second half show a lot of mental toughness. 0 points, comes back with 21 in the second half. Tobias has continued to be a tough player on both ends, scrappy, not getting pushed around. What do you think of the Sixers right now that the series is 2-1 versus when it was 0-2?
0-2, I mean, listen, I think that Miami earned their 2 wins in Miami, but I also was skeptical of how great they really were because, first and foremost, they were plus 30 in Miami for the first 2 games, with the Sixers not having Embiid and making like 20% of their threes. So you figure no Embiid, terrible shooting, you should be winning 2 games there by at least 25 points, and the Heat were only plus 30 in those first 2 games. So I thought there was breathing room and a world of improvement that the Sixers had in front of them, and last night showed that, I thought.
Yeah, I think so, too. And after it was 0-2 and before Joel Embiid played, I thought the series was over, not because I'm overly impressed with the Heat, because I'm not. It's because winning 4 out of 5 is tough. I have to be honest. After another effort from the Heat, is it possible that they're just not that good?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I've respected them because I think they play very gritty, stout defense. But I just don't know where their offense is coming from. Like Jimmy Butler had his big game last night. He's been injured. Does he have another 1 or 2 of them in this series? We'll see. Kyle Lowry looked very much like a shell of his old self last night. Granted, he was coming back from a hamstring injury, but 0 points. Adebayo got off in the first 2 games of the series because they didn't have Embiid. In fact, this is a great stat. He was I think he was 10 for 12 in the restricted area and 5 for 7 in the paint out of the restricted area first 2 games. Last night he was 0 for 3 total from those 2 spaces. So, I mean, with Embiid back, Adebayo is basically a non-factor on offense. I mean, where is their offense coming from? It's going to come from 3-point shooting to Max Strus. They're going to drive and kick to Max Strus. And, the Heat haven't exactly shot the lights out in games 1 and 3. And they have Tyler Hero, who's arguably their best shot creator. So I think typically winning 4 out of 5 in a playoff series is a tall task. And it even does remain as a tall task in this scenario. But I don't think this Heat is an indestructible 1 seed at all.
No, they're just not.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. And we know Embiid defensively brought a lot to the table. When it comes to James Harden, what did you see that stood out the most? I mean, shooting the ball from 3, it wasn't the greatest. He was a team-high plus 27. You saw the difference when he was on the floor compared to off the floor, but he definitely attacked well. What stood out to you most in his game?
Yeah, so I think plus-minus can be a flawed stat sometimes because it's often it's shaped around what your teammates do in addition to what you do. Mm-hmm. But it says a lot when Joel is plus 8 and James is plus 27. I mean, it wasn't that Joel was back that made that made Harden suddenly good again. it was that like Harden dramatically got better with Joel being on the floor. And I think what it comes down to is like Miami switches everything. That's their philosophy. And when you have Embiid on the floor, there's someone having to jockey for positioning with Joel. That means there's one less body you can throw at Harden on the perimeter, and that means that he's going to have some isolation matchups. The jumper has, I think, largely failed him since coming to Philly. But I thought last night, like he was able to beat guys off the dribble and get and drive to the rim, collapse the defense, get to the interior, and really create shots. And it wasn't just like Embiid. It wasn't just like creating shots for Embiid. It was everybody. They made, I think, 16 threes last night. And I just really think that James's presence is maximized by Joel being there, which is, by the way, what you traded for anyway. Like you didn't trade James to lead this team by himself. You traded for him to be a co-star and a Robin to Joel's Batman.
Yeah, and that's what we haven't been able to see enough of, obviously, in the first couple games. Maxey. First half, well, all right, first off, Maxey, one thing we know in the offseason, the thing he has to work on the most is the point guard stuff. Still not a great creator as a point guard. But putting that aside, man, as an offensive player, has he become a force. What changed in the second half after such struggles in the first half for him offensively?
I just think he got more aggressive. Like I think he only took like 3 shots, I want to say, in the first half. He was worlds more aggressive, and he's the type of guy if he makes 2 shots, you have to be concerned about him as a defense because he lights up very quickly. I mean, what more can you say? I mean, what can you say about the kid? Every night he does something crazy, and last night he hits all 5 of his threes in the second half. He makes that incredible defensive play to get down the court and beat the pass ahead, and he's just sensationally confident in himself. And it's getting to the point with him where, like, you have to wonder, is he not the second star instead of just a third head on a 3-pronged monster? I mean, he does something crazy every half, and it's almost like an expectation now where he has a quiet first half, he's going to have a big second half. It's wild to watch him play.
I know this is sort of a longer-term question, but I'm just fascinated to get everyone's opinion on this in regards to Tobias Harris because of how strong he has been in this playoff run. And have your thoughts changed on the whole Tobias Harris contract experience based off of this year's playoff run?
I still don't think he's a $40 million per year player. Like that's
sure
what he's trending towards in the latter half of his contract. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think he's been fabulous these playoffs. The defensive side of the ball against Toronto, he was excellent. He was taking and making shots without thinking, just quick release go. He was very good in sort of keeping them stable in games 1 and 2. Didn't shoot well last night and didn't really defend all that great. But I think that the one big thing that's really stuck out to me is in the regular season, I think he shot like 66% at the rim. He's up to 71% in the playoffs at the rim. So, I mean, his touch has gotten better in a higher leverage environment. And I think that's a testament to, his ability to sort of not shrink in the moment. I mean, aside from 2 games last season against the Hawks, he was really good in those playoffs. And he was, he's been really good for the Sixers this playoffs. I don't think he's a star. I think he's probably a tier below star level, maybe 2 tiers below star level. But I think he's certainly a very good fourth piece that I think most teams, if you would weigh him against other teams' fourth pieces, he probably projects as one of the better fourth pieces in the NBA.
Yeah, I think so, too. That's we're talking to Austin Krell from the Painted Lines. Now, so the path to winning the series obviously starts with the game tomorrow. Miami, this is one thing I'm confused about. Spoelstra's supposed to be this great coach. They couldn't score, and the Sixers have not had much of an answer for Hero. There was only 2 Heat players in double figures. Obviously, you had Jimmy Butler, and then it was Hero. Why doesn't Hero play more, and do you think he will play more in Game 4? Because it seems like he's the one thing the Sixers have not been able to slow down up until this point, but the coach played him the same amount of minutes as Strus, And to me, that doesn't make sense.
So I think it's sort of like you have to pick and choose, like, which fight you want to battle. I mean, Hero's a really good offensive player, really good shooter, not a good defender. And so the Sixers are going to, and given the Miami's defensive schemes, the Sixers naturally are going to hunt him for switches, and they're going to try to get him on Embiid, try to get him on James, try to get him on Tyrese, whatever. So I think you have to pick and choose that battle. I think an adjustment Spoelstra can make is, number one, maybe you see Duncan Robinson in Game 4, who hasn't played at all this series yet, and just to add some shooting to the mix. Maybe they give Hero more on ball duties and play him next to Butler, so that that way they have a little bit more dynamic play at the guard positions. But I mean, you look up and down the Heat roster; they're pretty deep. They have guys that can make shots in a standstill situation, but I don't know that they have that many bullets left in terms of speaking out shot creation. I mean, I think Lowry's probably due for a game at some point. Jimmy, we'll see if he has a couple more games left. But I mean, they're going to be relying on shooting from the beyond the arc, and Adebayo has to try to hold his own against Joel. And last night, Joel took him completely out of the equation.
Yeah, he did for sure. It's going to be interesting. Tomorrow will be, if we get to 2-2, it's a whole new series. Obviously, if the Sixers lose, we know what's going to happen. Great work all year, man. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
All right, that was Austin Krell from the Paid Lines. Yeah,